Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Kwentong GK. I'm your host, Donna Reyes. We have an exciting guest and story again this night for tonight. But before we formally start our show, I would like to take a moment to share that the mother of our executive director, Maricel Barreiro Villanueva, had passed and would like to take a moment of silence to pray for her and her family. If you would just join me. Eternal rest grant unto Tita Zeni Barrero, O Lord, and let perpetual light shine upon her. May she rest in peace. Amen. And so with that, we extend our condolences on behalf of GK USA to Maricel Villanueva, Barrero Villanueva, and to the entire Barrero family. We're praying for you, and we pray for the repose of the soul of Tita Zeni Barrero. So this evening, we have another special story, and who will, from a very special guest for this evening. He is a retired radiologist and also one of the members of the board of directors of GK USA. Please welcome Dr. Charlie Capati.
Hello, good evening.
Hi, Tito Charlie.
Hi, Donna. Good evening, and the prayer and the condolences. I was going to also thinking about doing that same thing, and we're all sad about the passing of Maricel's mother. I hear she's a wonderful person.
I actually did not have the privilege or opportunity to meet her, Tito, but just judging from how Maricel is and how she really also relentlessly continued to work despite the challenges, the personal challenges with her mother's health, health and medical condition. She continued to really contribute and work very hard, and so we extend our love and prayers to you, Maricel, and your entire family. So, Tito, okay. So let's start with our sharing this evening. I'm very excited to have you as our first guest for the month of July. So this is actually a wish granted. I had a wish list for the month of July, being it my birthday month, and I really wanted to have people that I've worked with. I wanted to take the what's it called, the memory lane, right? I like to take our friends the memory lane when we started Gawad Kalinga USA back in 2003. So Tito, you also started in 2003, correct?
Yes, 2003 was when we attended the UST annual convention, and Dr. Joe Yamamoto happened to be there giving a talk, and it was about gout kalusugan. And Nirna, was watching the lecture, and she was so inspired by it, and she called me. Oh, this is something that you really should see. And then we were impressed. And then about a month later, we got a very nice brochure from Jerry Balbin, who sent us this very nice brochure regarding GK and all its goals. And I thought it was too good to be true. But anyway, when I coupled that with the lecture by Joe Yamamoto, we just went ahead and donated at that time in 2003. But before I go on, I would like to say that GK involvement is not just uh, an individual thing, just like you and Robbie. It takes teamwork, husband and wife, um, and uh, and I am very, very fortunate that Myrna um, um, uh, came along wholeheartedly with all the passion that I could muster, equaling mine. So I want to really recognize that, and to all the GK couples that I have worked with early on. I would like to mention them. We had Hesok and Sally, Andraneda, uh, Jerry, and Elvi, Baldwin, June, and Dali, Velote, George, and Margie Burima, Art, and Noemi, Divina Gracia, Efren, and Ruth, Jose, Ross, and Pita Arena, and of course, Robbie and Dana Reyes. Then we have Linda de Guzman, and Corey Gaira, and Glenda and Roy, uh, who later on became GK Executive Director. And then, of course, we can never forget Sita and Oni Yoro, and doctors Sita and Oni Yoro, and then Anong Santos. Those are the early workers of GK, and up to now, a lot of them are still working for GK after 2003, that's 16,
Yes.
17 years. So all this started when we had that WOW GK in 2004, when we had Tony Miloto and Dylan Wilt arrived in Chicago. I think they also arrived with some the Miss Philippines.
Aurora P1.
Aurora P1 was there also. But anyway,
Tito,
before they,
you just gave me a major flashback because those all the people you mentioned, of course, including yourself and Tita Mirna, have become a family to me. And all of you were actually in our wedding, at our church wedding near Ravi. So
yes,
as you are
yes.
all family, and and that's what GK is all about. It's all about family. So thank you for mentioning their names. And
Oh, yes, yes. They were a very hardworking group. And, I was going to continue with my story. Um, During that night, they invited a few other doctor couples, small roundtable meeting with Dylan and Tony Milotto, and was Primo and Sylvia Andres and Sita and Oni Yoro and Greg Tolentino, and the two of us. So they they gave a bird's eye view on what was going on with the GK, and we even at that time preliminary talks, we were already very touched. And when they started talking, especially I know Tony is a very charismatic speaker, but what affected us most was Dylan, who is a British guy, and you see him, seems like he loves the Philippines more than we do, and in a sense, it made us guilty that we are so comfortable there while he's so busy trying to help the cause and trying to help the Philippines. So that night was a uh, very inspiring moment for us, and it just made us feel like we had to do a lot more. And and we cried, and Myrna cried, and it was said that she cried 3 times. That's why we donated 3 villages, Forever Cry Village. Anyway, that was that was the highlight of that time, that night.
Well, yeah, Tito, so you mentioned those three villages that you and your family personally um, donated and built for the poor in the Philippines. And many might think that, well, he can do it. He's a radiologist, and Tita Mirna is also a doctor, and your children are all professionals. I know Albert is a dentist. Excuse me, dentist, and all of that. But it did not really come. It's not probably not as easy as many people would think. Am I right, Tito?
Yes, that time it was not a good time for me. I was just recovering from major financial catastrophe. The year 2000, the stock market crashed. I I retired just on that year, and it just last, like I mentioned in one of my articles, it said if Tony visited us in year 2000, it would have been a lot more generous because obviously my resources there were significantly more. But at that time, during that night, I still was trying to seal up a lot of uh, uh, um, financial things that were left in disarray. And but still, because of the inspiration they provided, I said, it
Tito, what what
will
what
go
moved
on.
you? Because you shared in one of your articles that the financial difficulty that you were talking about. You say you share like matter of factly, but it was not. It was you said you lost a lot of your investments and all of that, right? You even said that you almost filed bankruptcy. So that was really, and a lot of people who were in really good financial situation really went under the water because of that. We're talking about the 2000, 2001, right?
Right,
9/11, terrorist attack that obviously affected the economy and all of that. And then another crash in 2008, which of course, a lot of people
right.
who suffered from that. But you still made the commitment. It would have been totally understandable if, if you just maybe concentrated on recovering what you have lost, right? Or maybe
Mhm.
on your family and your personal needs. Maybe you did not have to build three villages and we would still love you. Many people would still love you. You did not have to do that. But what really compelled you to do much more than what will be comfortable?
Well, we early on we were already thinking about helping out in a big way. In the late 90s, we were thinking about going and building halfway houses in the Philippines, home for the elderly and also the homeless children. And those are we wanted to do those, and we were looking for ways to how to do that. And then if GK was happened along then it would have been perfect. But anyway, it was already we were just very happy that GK came along, and then in spite of you know the not so ideal situation financially for us, we decided to go ahead and do it. Anyway, I said, parang hulugan naman, if you do monthly contribution and we'll accomplish it. But on the way home, coming from the party, he said, I said to Mirna, what did we get ourselves into?
That seems to be a common story, right?
Sorry. So anyway, I we just said, well, if we're going to do this, we might as well infect others and drag others with us. So that happened to be what we did. I mean, right from the very start, we started contacting our friends and our business colleagues and medical partners, and right off, 1 month after that meeting, we were able to gather enough funds to establish a GK village by inviting a small group of doctors and friends in Decatur who were equally moved when we showed them the video about GK, and that was quite a revelation. The effectiveness of uh, direct communication and discussion, and it's just a very effective way to do it. And over the years, I've learned that, and because if you don't do that, it doesn't really give you a good standing relationship with other donors who may not donate just because you haven't really established the connection and the follow through. And there's a lot of doubt, and there's a lot of the cost, and it could be just I even heard one of my good friends saying it's just Ninga Sugun, so Ninga
Yeah.
Sugun means you just flash fire or something and just go and die down. And he didn't want to donate, and then eventually he donated. So that's been since 2004, and up to now, relationships like that have been maintained through the years, in spite of all the problems we've had through the years. So it's a but the thing is about this is that fundraising is difficult, very difficult. But all the more difficult is to be a frontline worker. And I've seen interviews about the front with difficult. I can't imagine being able to do that. And even when going home and looking at our caretakers in the villages, I don't know how and passionate people, they do it without regard for themselves. And the head of the Kapitbahayan in my first village in Bagong Silang, all the houses were occupied, and he did not have a house. He said he was the last time he had to live with his in-laws because there was no house available for him because he didn't get it first. I mean, he's the last one, and that's how these guys are. I mean, and that's just one example that you can just see that everywhere. So we have a lot of heroes there, definitely.
Yeah.
And without them, I think nothing, even no matter how much fundraising you do here, it'll be worthless if it's not for them, because GK is not going to be, and
Right.
and there are a lot of executives earning 6 figures managing things, and your money doesn't really go to I mean a very small fraction of the money goes to the bottom line. So yeah,
Yeah, like last
why
week,
go?
Tito, they do literally put their lives on the line. Last week we had Eyes of
Yeah.
India, and they were actually the first Okinawa family who got COVID. Who got infected with COVID.
Yes.
Well, her, Aiza and Budoy, and Aiza's brother and and their yaya all got COVID. And I guess I think it was Budoy first. And, and that's the kind of work that they do. They go out, they have to meet people, they have to, like literally like be face to face with them. So they are really literally frontliners. And compared to
Yes.
that sacrifice and that kind of work, what we do here really pales in comparison. But I don't want to diminish what you have contributed, and people like you who, like I said, you can. No one would judge you if you built, one village, or even just built one home. Our community, as is would just be. We are a very Gawad Kalinga is a very loving community, and whatever you give would be very much appreciated, but you decided to give much more. And I really want to touch on
Okay.
where that's coming from, maybe your background a little bit. Before we get to that though, Tito Charlie, I wanted to read some messages from the chat, from the comments on Facebook, which you and I would not see. So thank you, Chrissy and Lovely, for sharing it here on our chat. Okay, from Chrissy, she says, Tito Charlie raises the most signups to our recurring micro donations campaign. Yes, I was just in a meeting with them, and Francis Miranda and David Zaraga, I think it was maybe 2 nights ago. And yes, Chicago's #1 in micro donations. I know Leslie's watching, and I'm sure she's jumping up and down because, she gets competitive with that kind of thing. That's good, right? If that's what we're competing for, let's compete. All regions, we're calling all regions to all compete for the poor, right? Only the poor would win, right? If we all compete to deliver those numbers. But yeah, Tito Charlie is a huge, I think he raised most of that coming from Chicago, right? And then from Leslie to Kiara to Charlie, one of my role models. And of course, Bill Capati. Hi, Bill. He goes, that's my dad. Obviously, very proud of Tito Charlie. I would be too, If, all right. So Tita June Rafinhan, Dr. Rafinhan says, more power, Charlie. You inspire us. Thanks. And from Tita Carol Tulud, good to see you, Kuya Charlie. And then again from Dr. Rafinhan, I'm on GK Tampa meeting right now and share kwentong, and she's sharing kwentong GK. Awesome. Oh, and then Leslie's asking, maybe I should read that last. From Tita Josie Disterhoff, another board member and also from Chicago. Thanks for the gift of your story of how you bonded with this extraordinary mission and movement called Gawad Kalinga, Charlie, and of how you have deepened your familial commitment over the years. I will need to catch up. E-connection where I seems to be totally gone. Hopefully I can listen to the replay tomorrow. I guess she's probably also having some internet problems. But okay, so Leslie has a question, Tito. Where are the villages that Tito Charlie and the team built?
Our 3 villages are located one in Bagong Silang, which is called CM and Sons Village, and the second one was in Angeles, and it's Guillermo and Luna Capati, my parents, and then the other one is in Angat, Bulacan, named under Myrna's parents, Pablo and Marcelina Galong. Then, excuse me. Mm-hmm. So anyway, those are our villages. Then we went on, obviously, to raise funds for several other villages. You know, in the one indicator and also the Association of Filipino Opposition Southern Illinois Village. They're both located in Camarines Norte.
Right.
There's a story behind that in the Apsi village. I never was one to really seek office for a position. I really didn't want to get involved with that. I was always a member, but not an officer. So when I got involved with GK, well, I got to be president to get these people and donate a village. So I went ahead and campaigned to become a president. And then I said, I will only be a president if you agree to, get the main project, our main project as building a village. And of course, after a while, they thought about it, and after a while, they agreed. And then not only we were able to donate one village, we had an excess of funds, so we were able to um, uh, have in reserve another village if we wanted to. But then there was this major typhoon in the Bicol region, and there were so many roofs that were blown away. So GK asked us to uh, uh, they can use the money that we were reserving for a village to repair all this village. So I asked the organization AFC, and they agreed, and that's what happened to our second village. We went to the roofs instead of building houses. So and there are several more. What I would like to really emphasize is that the major impact that we had that meeting with Tony, Tony Melotto and Dylan the night before in that WOW GK thing is that the Sita and Onioro and what's the name, Sylvia and Primo Andres, they're both UST officers in our USTA Medical Alumni Association. And I, together with them, we really embarked on influencing and really spreading the idea of GK. And then the following year, we were able to invite Tony Melotto and Dylan to speak at our annual convention in July of 2005. And I wrote on the Tomasian newsletter, magazine, my trip, relating about my trip to the Philippines, visiting the villages that I was going to build and my experience with it. And that's really made a major impact. And a lot of the jubilarian classes started donating their own villages, and there were even individual Tomasians did donate villages like we did, like I did, and Dr. Andres did, and Dr. Rioro did. By the last count, I can remember there are about 50 UST MAA villages that we have built as a result of what we have started. So that was an amazing thing. Up to now,
I know your group built a lot of villages. I did not realize it was 50.
Yes, my own classmate, UST MD70, our first village was in Towerville. In 2005, we were able to raise half a village. And then in 2010, we donated one whole village. We built one whole village in Tres Martires under the leadership of Max Basco and Luz Hammersheim. Our class was very generous. They even donated a major portion of the hospital on wheels that Jim Sanchez has built, established and has been doing all these surgeries all over the Philippines almost on a weekly basis. And when the pandemic started, he started using the hospital on wheels, using it as a lugaw on wheels. So he was feeding, thousands of hungry children and people who were really hungry. So yeah, it's a very very satisfying experience. And even now, with the we call this the new movement now, the what do you call this, community pantries. So
Yes.
they have been donating to the community pantries, and of course our GK core group is very much involved in that community pantry. Then we have Margie and George Burima. They
Mhm.
well, they are neighbors in Angeles. They settled, Margie is from Nueva Ecija,
Yes.
but they like it so much in our neighborhood in Angeles, so they decided to build a house there. And within 1 year, she was the president of the uh, homeowners association.
And she's not
And
even Kapampangan.
yeah, so she really spread her wings, and I have been in partnership with her with all her projects, and she never stops. She never
Yes.
stops. Just
Yes.
just a wonderful wonderful couple. You know.
So, Tito, I was talking about before I started reading the comments on the chat here on Facebook. I was alluding to covering or discussing where this passion is really coming from, and you shared in the letter I think, or you wrote to Tito Tony Meloto and Bilan, that you very much relate to the plight of the poor because you actually lived in your family lived in the squatters area as well, and that's probably something that many people would find surprising because you're a doctor. So how did that, I'm really curious to know how was your journey from that to you being one of the success stories here in the US.
Yeah, there were two instances in my life where I was a squatter, actually living in a squatting area, informal settler, call them now.
Mhm.
One was when I was in the kindergarten area age. I remember living before near well three blocks from the railroad, and my mother uh, was a teacher, but at that time they were starting out, so they were living in a small. I was just 4 years old, 5 years old. So,
Mhm.
but then after a few years, they were able to buy a small house by the railroad, and that was their own. And then when I started my pre-med years, my grandfather lived in a built a house by the railroad in Antipolo Street under the Masalang Bridge. Uh,
Mhm.
and that was squatter area, all of that by the railroad. And that was where the house stood. So every time it rains, it floods there because it's under the bridge. So when I go to UST, you know, I would wade in the water like knee deep, and then get on the jeepney, and then I get to Dapitan. It's already it's also flooded, and then you have to wait again. So that's what rainy season meant during that time. But yeah, it's it's something that really uh, makes it more meaningful for me. Aside from having, I guess you have, they call giving genes. My mom and dad. I remember, uh, they they housed everybody that they can. They had six children, but I had cousins and aunts and uncles living under the same roof, really so crowded, and they were all going to school, and uh, and then anybody who asked for them for a loan or for help, even if my mom would borrow from a rich uh, relative, will actually lend in return, in turn to lend to these poor relations. So we never really got, like say, comfortable uh, living like sufficiently. I mean, I remember, if we have one whole chicken, and there are like 12 to 15 of us with one chicken, that doesn't really, you know, last like, anything. So it's a, and if like in the province, if you have like crops like say onions or tomatoes, so if it's tomatoes and dinner tomatoes or
Mhm.
whatever dish that is. So that's how we live. So anyway,
Tito,
these
I
are
can't help but feel a little bit emotional as you're sharing that. One of the reasons that I'm very excited to have you this evening is that um, except for we have a lot of things in common. Obviously, we both come from Pampanga, right? And we're both Kabalin. We both started in the same year in 2003. The other thing that I knew about your story, your humble beginning, so to speak, of your family and all of that. I have been blessed to grow up, comfortably. But my father actually was an orphan at the age of 5 years old, I think, 5 or 7 years old.
turn on the lights.
Yes, and relatives would, raised him, and he died at 49 years old. By the way, I'm turning 49 in a couple of weeks, so this is just really, just really emotional for me a little bit, because my father died at 49, so I was 11 years old when he passed. But I vividly remember stories of how he grew up. He would always say that he grew up poor, and he always had a very strong affinity. I'm sorry, my voice is shaking because all these memories just keep uh, you know flashing back. So what I do for GK, no matter how humble and and meager compared to what everyone else like yourself is doing, is really a tribute and in my way of honoring my dad. And on that note, before I tear up, I wanted to share also Albert Capati would not be outdone. He goes, "That's my dad too." Diba? So Father's Day has gone, it has passed like a month ago or so, but we celebrate dads every day. So there you go. Hi, Albert. Albert was a very good singer, by the way. I've been watching your videos. And then, yeah, so Chrissy shares that both Bill and Albert are really so proud of you, commenting on the chat below. And then Mayor Amante says, Tito Charlie makes me very busy, but I like it because that means his style of reaching out for the poor is still working after all these years. Yes, right? Since 2003. And then Tita Carol says, salute to you, Kuya Charlie. So the other thing that we have in common, Tito Charlie, apparently, as I was reading the articles here, is that you and Tita May are also firstborn, right?
Yes.
And
Mhm.
so, when you started in 1972 in the US, it wasn't, obviously, you didn't have like, high income right away. You had to start your residency and all of that. And you had to take a job also because you were helping your siblings, right? Both you and Tita May, you're helping your family, and she's helping your family. So to your point, they're giving genes is probably it too. And that's how you were raised to take care of family and all of that. But you go beyond helping your family. You are now really making a difference in the lives of people you probably have not even met yet, right? Why is that important to you?
Well, early on, what we were talking about, where we were not comfortable, growing up because of the way our situation was. But the more that you give, my mother and my parents, they, the more they receive. In other words, they get the standard of living started going up there. My dad started as a messenger boy and until and then studied at night and then went on to become a bank manager. All this giving actually was very good, and that's been a lesson for in giving. Gotten so much back in return. So it's not. If you look at it in a certain way, it's like it's a selfishness situation where uh, I got to stop. I got to give more so that I can get back, get back, get back. I mean, obviously that's not what you intend to do, but that's what happens. I mean, all the things that we have now that are gathered, and it's because of the right decisions that we've made under the blessing of the Lord above. Giving us the opportunity to do things that we have decided on and become very, very financially stable at this point, in spite of all the you know uh, roadblocks along the way. During my residency, as you were talking about when you were in New York, um, I happened to get an early license, a state license, so I was able to moonlight, they call it. So aside from your training, as my training as a radiologist, I started working in hospitals at night. So basically, I was working day and night. I will take a couple of nights off every week, but all those 3 years, I was doing residency in radiology. I was doing basically two full-time jobs, and that's because of out of necessity. Because we have a lot of brothers and sisters who needed to finish their education, and that's the only way we could do it. So. That's why when we moved to the Midwest, I was like on vacation because I was just starting with one job and it was not a training program, and the call schedule was easy, so it was
How
it was
many years did you have to work two full-time jobs, Tito?
3 years.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, that was during my training. Training is very important, but I had to
Yes.
do it. Yeah, but
And
and
this is you're obviously very hardworking. This isn't well. I read in one of the articles too that for like you worked every day for an entire month or something. The whole month you would work when you were trying to raise funds for those villages as well. So you've
yeah, I will use my vacation time to. I'll use my vacation time
wow.
to earn money for
And
to
but
do.
that time, that time though, it's not for your family anymore because your
Yes,
family set and your siblings are all, they're all set and you've helped them and all of that. But that, you still worked hard for people you don't even know, right?
yes. I think that's probably one of the most difficult decision that a lot of our compatriots and friends have to make a decision on because of very close family ties. Family comes first. You have to help your family first, whether it's your father, or your mother, or brother, or sister, or your niece, or uncle, or lolo, or whatever. They come first. So you never think about giving some money to strangers or outside the family. So that's a major leap. Uh, the only way you could touch them is by being passionate about it and reaching them in a way that say, oh yeah, you're right. I mean, I can't always give to my family or whatever. You know, um, we have to help because, like I said, our generation, the one who came here in the early '60s all the way up to the early '90s, we were really very, very fortunate. Uh, medicine in the United States is to such a point that it was they needed a lot of doctors. Medicare was approved in the 60s, and so they needed a lot of doctors, nurses, and so all of us came here to train, and then most of us settled here. So that was the golden years of medicine. And it's unfortunately it's no longer the same. So a lot of us in our generation, they do have a lot of reserves financially, and those are the ones like my classmates. Our classmates they are really very generous, and they really helped a lot. And like I said, the Tamashans that who came here, they're all they donated 50 villages. That speaks for itself. And every year they go to medical missions and surgical missions. You know, it's just something that because obviously if you're a doctor, you have that humanity speaking a little bit more. You're closer to the afflicted, so your heart is a little bit with family values and all these things that make you a good person. And then your education was there. You became a doctor there, you became a nurse there, an engineer there, and then you left and then stayed here in the United States. You served the United States for over half your life. And then, so what is there else to do? I mean, you have to really look back and say, well, I've done my part here, and it's long overdue that I should really help the Philippines. And
Mhm.
that's what we've been doing since year
And what a blessing you are. What a blessing your family is, really, Tito. One of the things that Tito Tony Milota said, one of the favorite things, my favorite things he said was, he says, if you help your family, you become close to them. If you help people you don't know, you become close to God. Isn't that true? Di ba? Kasi parang, especially among Filipinos, it's almost a given. Like you said, Tito, to help your family, right? In whatever way you can. But to help someone you don't know, to reach out to your brother or sister who you don't even know and they're nameless and, even faceless because you don't know them really, right? It really brings you closer to God. Let me read a couple more comments here, Tito, and we're gonna switch gears and talk about like some of the things that you had some ideas back in 2005 during the San Diego summit that we were looking at it, and some of those ideas, and some of them still apply and are still relevant. We can still use to this day. To Tita Mare's point, she says that obviously your approach from then, which you still do now, still work because you keep her busy. All right, so let's see. Oh, Thelma de Guzman is watching. She says, that's my brother. So proud of him. And then also Seth Policarpio de la Cruz says, proud classmate of USTMD 70 of Charlie and May, unending generosity of the couple. All right. So Tito, so what are some of the, maybe we should spend, a few minutes here to talk about some ideas that maybe some people can learn from, and maybe they can apply in their respective areas if they're officially, part of a team of Gawad Kalinga, or even, their own family if they want to maybe start something with their family or friends. What are some of your ideas?
Well, even then at that time, we have. Let me just read what I had been GK ideas of Carlos Capati. That was in 2005. Reach out to different film organizations. Put out letter testimonials to be sent GK flyers to different Philippine alumni associations, U.S. regional organizations, Philippine regional associations, professional associations. And it says here, contact their leaders, ask if we can send GK presenters in their gatherings and be allowed a table to exhibit GK literature and video materials. And we have been doing that even at that time, when we attend USTMAA, we bring brochures and calendars and all that stuff. Then
Yes.
and then also concentrate on cheaper and faster access to such as email, letters, and telephones, which up to now is a proven thing. I mean,
Mhm.
you email, you text, and then you follow up with a mail, with a call. The what's important for us is that the Philippine custom of being yung word na nakakahiya. In other words,
Yes.
it goes both ways. Nakakahiya na tumawag. Okay? But
Yes.
naman, yung tinawagan mo naman, nakakahiya kung if you don't give, if he asks you kahit na konti lang. In other
Yes.
words, all right. So once I make that overcome that nakakahiya on my part, it's embarrassing to call or something. Then it's up for the other guy on the other side to say, "Oh, nakakahiya naman." Then he will come to say, "Okay, I might just give a little bit or whatever, just so that hindi siya mapapahiya sa akin."
Right.
So so that is actually something that you could use every time. Sabi
Yes.
mo, kapalan mo ng mukha mo, huwag ka nang mahiya, tumawag ka.
Yes.
So you make that call because you need it. I mean, you are the one who is wanting to raise the money, and I'm sure if he's your friend, and more than likely he's going to give. Okay,
Yes.
so that's the
To
thing.
that point, actually, Luis Oquiñana even said, right? Why would you be embarrassed? You're not asking for yourself. It's not money you put in your pocket. You're asking for the
Right.
You're asking for people who really truly need it, and
Yeah.
the more people, I think that, okay, again, not to diminish the efforts of people who are raising, money, like large sums of money, but I feel like a donation of $1,000 from one person versus a donation of $100 from 10 people, or like a donation of, $10 from 100 people, different, because that means that you are engaging, you are changing the life and the heart of those people who are giving. Because a lot of times we feel like, oh yes, I'd like to make a difference in people's lives, which we are doing that. But let us not forget the opportunity that we are giving our friends and family to also change their life, because it feels good to be able to make a difference in people's lives, right? And it feels good to be able to feel that your existence oh yeah, kasi nga matatanda na naman ako, nagiging that your existence in this earth is not just about breathing. It's actually really, an opportunity to reach out. Diba, Tita? So what do you have other things that you want to say?
Well, actually, our micro donation drive that is existing now, I already brought it up on this GK ideas of mine.
Yes, yes. In the
donation.
GK ideas, and also in one of the articles that were written
Mm.
about you mentioned it. You said that, if people would, even if people would just put, donate $1
$1 a day.
3 years, you came up with all these numbers. So you talked
Right.
about it, like even in the early years, you started with GK.
Yes, and it works. It really works. They said I raised most of what was raised in Chicago by doing that. In other words, this micro donation program it was made through texting and calling and following up. And uh,
So what did you do exactly, Tito? Did you text them the link to the
Yes,
page?
I either emailed them or texted to them or through Messenger or through the Viber group of our class.
Right.
To my relatives and friends,
And then did you
and
follow up
then
with them? Did you
afterwards,
ask them?
just followed it with either more texts or calls, and some of them just called me. I didn't need to call them, and they responded. You know, it didn't take a lot of work really, because you can do it very fast with emailing and texting and all that. And I'm just counting if I mean I probably did it raise all that. I mean, that doesn't even, the list there, that doesn't even include the checks that were sent directly to mayor. And that's a substantial one too. So in other words, it's not just the micro donation that was that's listed, but there are other stuff. But the point I'm making is that this work that I've done for this thing, it didn't really require a lot of time. I'm saying that over 2 weeks, I probably spent like three three 3 days out of the 7 weeks of a few minutes here and there, and that's it. So I don't see any reason why some others among us can't do maybe even just a small part of it, or you know do it like once a week, or once every 2 weeks, or whatever,
Mhm.
and they would end up with a lot of micro donors. Really,
Right. Yeah.
it should work.
And we can probably put in the link to our micro donations page on
Mhm.
GKUSA's website. We can probably put that in the comment below so they can, find out more information about it. So, Tito, do you have any advice, right, for especially for people who are, I don't know if the word is conflicted with their priorities, but how for people who are trying to balance between their personal needs or the needs of their family, right? And maybe even for people who are starting their careers, or like starting a young family where they feel like their family needs them, so and their family is a priority and they don't have time or money or whatever other resources, so they can contribute to a cause even as important as eradicating poverty in the Philippines.
Well, I would say that it's not really about you giving money. I mean, money is you can give if you can. Like, obviously I can, but the more I've raised a lot more money rather than giving the money, and also I've spread the word uh, about GK more than anything else by doing all this, these articles that I've written, and all these emails that have been sent out, and letters. Those are the things. They don't really, require a lot of sacrifice on your part. If even if you're just struggling to raise a family, I mean, those are things that you have to you know establish your priority. If you really want to, if you're convinced that you want to help, there are a lot of ways you can help. You can obviously volunteer, and some of your time, and I'm sure that a lot of us are doing that. So if the frontliners who are really poor in the Philippines can do the caretaking job, taking care of all these hopeless people in the GK villages can do it, what more of us who we don't necessarily have to risk our lives? It can be done.
So, Tito, in the last few minutes here, we've been talking about, like, legacy villages, right? And I don't know if people know exactly what legacy villages mean, but I want to talk about your own personal legacy, especially because your children are watching, and obviously they're very proud of you. Your family's watching, and you've touched so many lives. Not only your own family, but again, those people who are really in dire need. And all they need is a chance, right? An opportunity to get out of poverty, so that they too can fulfill their dreams, much as you did. And maybe some of them would become a doctor as well, like you did. And so, what would you want to be remembered by, or what kind of legacy would you like, your children and your family and your loved ones the people you've touched, you'd want to leave them with?
That's, uh, I'm always uncomfortable being recognized. And I really hated it when Tony Miloto was keep saying my name when he keeps talking in front of people. I'll say, "Oh, Charlie this, Charlie that." I told him, Tony, why you keep doing that? I'm feeling so uncomfortable. I said, well, Charlie, if I don't say this, talk to people about you, I said, you know, uh, you, you give so much inspiration to other people. And, if I don't do that, I'll be wasting some of my time. He said, since he put it that way, I said, well, I started not being uncomfortable. I just took it. But the funny thing about it, the more you try to avoid being recognized, all the more you get recognized, I've received so many awards because of the recognition that we've done with GK. And I never sought to be somebody, I didn't want fame or anything. And for my legacy, I don't want anything. I mean, all I need, all I need is to continue what I've done. I have foundations both in the Philippines and in the United States. The one in the Philippines, we created uh, together with my brothers and sisters there when my father died 2 years ago. This one here in the U.S. was established a few years back, and that's going to stay forever. It's going to keep on being funded, and that's something that my children can continue doing so. Uh, and it has helped a lot of people so far. And if anybody wants to find out how a foundation be done, it's really not really a difficult thing to do, and you can dispense those dollars, easier, by going through that. I mean, obviously, a lot of my colleagues a lot of them are in the same situation that I do. They're comfortable. Their children are all done, and so they have a lot of disposable fortune. You cannot bring it with you. When when Napoleon died, he was. I mean, Alexander the Great. I don't know. Yeah, I think Alexander the Great was. I mean, well, he got all these riches, and then I mean, what are they for if I just leave them here? I'm not going. So anyway, I think we should all learn from that, and I think uh, we should we should really start or continue sharing what we become instruments for by our Lord. So we become instruments to help His poor, and that's what we should be doing.
Thank you so much, Tito Charlie. Tito Tony Pasco says, you are God sent to help the poor. And I personally think that your strongest legacy, is not only the villages you built, but your compassion, like your deep compassion for the poor and those people who need help, right? Not only because, like you mentioned, it's not only Gawad Kalinga, you have other foundations as well. So you obviously have a deep, compassion for people who are less fortunate. And also, and we can all be compassionate about something, but you're also very passionate, fiercely passionate about promoting, the movement, promoting, people, people getting involved in the work. And thank you for, funding our project, our membership drive project along with Tony Olas. I have to mention that because it's so very important to be able to pass the baton to other, to the next generations of people who would care for the poor, and we all get old, and and we need to have a succession plan, so to speak. I mean, back in the day, Robbie and I were the youngest. Now we're one of the the bridge now, right? From the first, from the first sort of first generation of supporters of Gawad Kalinga to to the younger people than us, right? So with that, we encourage you, to be a part of our Gawad Kalinga movement, to help our poor brethren in the Philippines. Making a difference in their lives will truly make your life even more meaningful. Thank you so much, Tito Charlie, for joining us this evening, and for kicking off my birthday month. I don't want this to be about me necessarily, but I really want to highlight, people. I know Tito Charlie was very hesitant to talk about his life and all of that, but I had to tell him that the star really is his story, and and that, we really have to talk about it so that people, would be inspired, will be motivated, and, will be inspired to do more because they can, right? Like Tito Charlie said. So thank you so much again, Tito Charlie.
You're very welcome, and it was a pleasure. It reminded me of that first speech that I made with trepidation in Chicago, I think 2005, and I was so scared because that I never wanted to give a speech, and there I was standing in the, and then afterwards I heard somebody say, "Oh, somebody, you made somebody cry." So, well, anyway, that made
I
my night.
remember.
So, yes, thank,
Yes, thank
thank
you. And thank you. Thanks everyone for joining us this evening for another inspiring story from one of our Gawad Kalinga advocates. Make it a habit every Thursday. Join us in Kwentong GK and be a part of the conversation. Good night, everyone.